Hi, Dr. Herman. It's very glad to have you here with us today at New York Stock Exchange.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here.
So firstly, why not introduce yourself and your company to our audience?
Okay, so I'm Dr. Herman Weiss. I'm a physician. I also have an MBA from George Washington University. I went to Ohio State Medical School. I'm currently the CEO of Todos Medical. We're an immune-based diagnostic company focusing on the immune system diagnosis of cancers and of Alzheimer's disease.
So sometimes we know that people are all afraid of cancer, so sometimes we do the cancer screening. So in your opinion, what is current limitation of the current cancer screening?
Well, I don't want to encourage anyone not to get a cancer screening, but right now, mammograms are the best we have for breast cancer screening. And even in the best of hands, they still miss a lot of cancers, and they have a high false positive rate in women who have dense breasts or ambiguous findings on mammogram. We have a simple blood test that will solve that with a much higher degree of sensitivity and specificity than the current standard of care. We also know that when a person gets a colonoscopy, which is a colon cancer screening, ordered, only 50% of the time they will follow through and actually have the test. That's why Exact Science, Cologuard are a multi-billion-dollar company. They were a billion-dollar company even before they launched their test and got it approved because of that exact reason. So they are successful.Ey're looking for circulating DNA in the stool, and other tests are looking for circulating DNA in the blood. We're not looking for circulating DNA of the cancer. We're looking for the immune system reaction to cancer. We're able to catch cancers immediately when they turn, much earlier, and even on a precancerous, in a precancerous state.
Is that TBIA platform you mentioned?
Yeah, we're actually taking the blood, spinning it, a simple blood test, like you would get a CBC or a blood cholesterol level check or your diabetes check. We spin it, send it to our lab, plate it, and send it through an off-the-shelf spectrometer. And based on our proprietary algorithms, we're able to take that fingerprint of the different cancers. That's the TBIA proprietary platform.
And what is LymPro platform?
LymPro is also looking at the immune system, but we're actually able to diagnose Alzheimer's at a much earlier. Alzheimer's is a horrible disease. My father passed from Alzheimer's a few years ago. Thank you. And it's really affects the family, obviously affects the person and the family and all the caregivers around. Had I known my father was suffering from Alzheimer's, it would have made all our lives a lot easier for at least 5-6 years before the actual diagnosis and his ultimate passing. Unfortunately, the diagnosis happens much later in the disease process, when the amyloid and beta amyloid and the tau are already circulating and causing damage and causing neuronal death. The cells in the brain are already dead by the time the diagnosis is made. Our test is not looking for amyloid or tau. It's looking for the mechanistic approach to why these cells are dying. We're looking at something called cell cycle dysregulation and cell cycle dysfunction. That is a mechanism upstream to allow us to make the diagnosis much earlier than currently happening. Why this is important, because you asked about differentiators. Nothing is being done for that right now. The earliest diagnosis is being done by a PET amyloid scan, which it's the only approved diagnosis in the market that Lilly owns. It's approved for diagnosing Alzheimer's disease. It costs about $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 depending on the location, and our test will come down, correlates about 85 to 90% correlation with the PET amyloid. So our test will become the new gold standard because third-party payers are not reimbursing that PET amyloid. They will reimburse ours because we're much cheaper.
So what clinical stage it is in about the TBIA and the LymPro?
The TBIA right now is being commercialized in Europe. We have a CE mark. We are going to be selling within 6 to 8 months in the European markets, in Romania and in Austria and in Israel. We want to make sure we perfect the delivery of care and the delivery of the results based on the blood tests that they send to us. Once we're able to commercialize in these locations, we'll regionalize and go to other countries. And we've already started interactions with the FDA. We have a 24 to 36 month launch program for the US market for our TBIA. for the Alzheimer's disease test, our current approval is something called IUO, investigational use only. Our hope and our goal is to get our biomarker involved in the pharmaceutical studies. Because right now there is no pharmaceutical that's approved for Alzheimer's disease because they start the trials too late. And we want to move that envelope earlier, get the patients into the trials earlier with a more accurate diagnostic that makes it earlier in the disease progression. What's also important to note is that it costs $150,000 to recruit one patient into an Alzheimer's disease trial, because they have to screen 15 patients to get one patient in. With our test, we'll be able to screen 3 or 4, get one patient in, decreasing costs by a factor of 10. Now, it's not only the big pharmas that can do the clinical trials. We can move it down to the early startups, and the universities will be able to recruit more patients for much less money, having more shots on goal, and eventually having a therapeutic based on our diagnostic. So we have a 3-pronged approach to commercialization. First, we will be selling our test to drug companies. Then, hopefully, a drug will become approved. Then we will be getting a companion diagnostic approval, so a drug will not be reimbursed unless we are LymPro positive, and eventually getting full diagnostic approval across the board. So at each stage we are increasing our revenues and increasing our commercialization.
You mentioned Europe and the US. Is this 2 markets you are focusing on?
Yeah, but we also have advanced discussions in Asia. Asian populations have a high incidence of dense breasts.
Exactly.
They also actually have a high incidence of lung cancer. We just got an approval of our patent for lung cancer diagnosis. We have advanced discussions. There's really no diagnostic available for lung cancer. And wouldn't it be simple to have a simple blood test that would allow you then to get either a CAT scan or some further diagnostics? So we're pretty excited about those markets as well.
And what is the next step for the development and the road to the commercialization?
So once we successfully commercialize in Austria, Romania, and Israel, we'll be expanding our European footprint, and we will be expanding to Asia and continuing clinical trials in the US.
Yeah, so is there any other words you want to say to our audience or the investors?
As a physician, I'm here to help doctors take care of patients. I want patients to live longer and healthier. And I want to make it in something that's not going to tax the healthcare system. So all our tests are relatively inexpensive compared to treating cancer at a much later stage.
Yeah.
Cancer is awful, but we all know that the earlier you catch it, the earlier you detect it, the better it is for the patient, the easier it is to treat. And Alzheimer's disease, from personal experience, we need to find a cure. And the only way to find a cure is to diagnose it earlier. The #1 unmet need, save for therapeutics in Alzheimer's disease, is catching it early and allowing patients to have behavioral modifications and getting them into drug trials. We need to cure this.
What's your long-term goal or short-term goal for the remainder of 2019?
Well, currently we're listed on the OTC market as TOMDF. We're in a process with an investment bank in an IPO process where we're going to be uplisting onto NASDAQ in the next few weeks. We're raising $7 million, and the goal is that will carry us for the next 18 months to commercialization and to clinical trials.
Okay, thanks so much for the interview. Thank you.
Thank you.